Gonna be a freestyle video. Let's go. The topic I want to talk about today is how giving more power in the world makes things more amplified and unstable. To give a bit of backstory, so I just finished watching To Be Hero X. I just completely chugged it from like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. till like 1 p.m. right now. And it made me reach a boiling point in regards to my realization of something that has appeared back when I watched Attack on Titan, like a few years ago. And then it like started manifesting properly when I watched Jujutsu Kaisen. And now it like fully I can fully understand it after I watched To Be Her X and I thought about it for a bit. So what I mentioned about more power, right? You can imagine it with as simple as money, having more money like in the world, like the inequality basically that you can imagine, or like in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's curse techniques. In To Be Hero X, it's trust, or in Attack on Titan, it's access to titans. And what I mean by more amplified world and more unstable is that when you add like a new layer of being better than others, being stronger than others, having more access to things than others, what ends up happening is that the inequality basically rises, and the more inequality rises, the more the graph is amplified, so to speak, and the more it's amplified, the more unstable it becomes, to a point where the strong are so strong that it doesn't matter how many of the quote unquote weak people there are, like let's say in the context of like a superpower graph, not necessarily just like people. And so if you make a parallel with our world, I think that the question we should start asking ourselves more and more, which is especially apparent with the advent of AI, not necessarily AGI, I'm not going to go into that topic deeper, but AI. We all heard of it. We all know. Most of us are probably scared. Some people are like hopeful. Some people are dooming about it, whatever. But if you think about it, AI is similar to introducing curse technique. Let's say there was Japan without curse technique. Now it's with curse technique. The world was without superheroes to be in To Be Hero X. Now it's with superheroes. And when you introduce this amplification, right, it leads to consolidation, but at the same time, it destabilizes the whole system. So it consolidates at the top end, not necessarily at the bottom end, but it leads to instability in the whole system where the top end can easily destabilize the whole thing, and most of the time people at the bottom suffer. And some people propose certain systems to like alleviate it, but from what I see, it is impossible to fix, simply because there's always going to be new things, new technologies, new advancements, new discoveries, like all of that, which will amplify the whole system more, 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 and more. We're going to explore planets. We're going to make a Dyson sphere. We're going to harness the power of the sun. We're going to go out of a galaxy, all that stuff. And instead of trying to make systems or follow systems that aim to alleviate the problem or control it, what I found interesting in like the idea of the companies in To Be Hero X, I forgot how they call it, agencies, and I forgot what was the other. But basically, their idea is that they control the trust, which is the basis of superpowers in To Be Hero X, so that the incident, spoiler, I'm not gonna say what incident, but so that the incident, if you know, where uncontrolled trust was like happening, so that it doesn't happen again. And if we go back to real world, what if we actually need like global structures and companies that would control the world, not in a political or physical or governmental way, but they would be the not the restriction, but they would keep people in check. And you'd say, okay, if you introduce that kind of system, who would keep that those people that keep others in check, because I mean that makes sense, right? The checkers need to be checked as well by some other checkers. And so it would then be necessary not to make another level of checkers, but to make checkers check themselves while they check everyone, quote unquote, below them. Which is somewhat was happening, for example, in To Be Her Ex, but in a less desirable way. Like, for example, right? Let's say there were three bodies, right? The triangle is probably the best way to like balance it, at least like after like the two company, like the two bodies, where all of them are basically all like regulators, but they regulate different spheres, but they cannot coexist without each other. So they have to both keep each other in check so that they have easier time keeping others in check. And to me, it seems that the system where we control things locally, like USA controls things locally, EU controls things locally, even though it's like all the countries together and there's like laws that affect all EU, but and different countries, like mostly it's locally, and even if it's not actually locally, it's semi-locally. And I do think that we might get slapped on our ass real hard at some point where we invent something or discover something and we don't have the regulatory forces to actually maintain it, and like something terrible will happen. Like with AI. AI is such a comfortable example to like talk about, where if we don't build the regulations of AI before developing the AI, we're basically gambling on whether or not we'll reach the point where we get screwed. And that is like my main idea, where we're kind of just blindly going to the forest hoping that we don't step in a swamp. There's no bear trap, there's no bear lair, there's nobody sitting with a sniper rifle aiming at us. We're just like marching forward. And most often people end up in political discussions with this. I don't think it's anything necessarily wrong to have that, because it's you do what you can basically, right? And it leads people to political debate. But I do think that the system that would be required is not apolitical, but it's like on the next level than politics. I don't know what it is, like world analytics, I don't know, globalytics, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was like my concern that I wanted to like get out there. Let me know if you like this type of videos more than more organized and scripted ones, because this is the type of videos I wanted to do initially, but I always kind of like struggled, not struggled, but I struggled from the beginning to like make those because they weren't cohesive enough. But this sounded pretty cohesive, I think. So yeah, that's about it. As always, think more than you procrastinate, do more than you think, and be more than what you do.